Ready?
So you didn't, I mean, this is not your career choice. This was, you ended up here after a couple steps, but where'd you get started? Where'd you grow up and kind of how did you end up in this place here? So tell us about your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area. I actually grew up in Hayward, and then moved my way to Castro Valley. I spent about 8 years in Los Angeles, but then came back home, and have been in the East Bay the entire time. I was just kind of I think I just have a heart for people. So I did things like Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We ran camps and retreats, and it was just a lot of like walking with kids and coaches and hard things that they're walking through and loving them well. And then I became a teacher. I was a PE teacher, and then became a vice principal. And again, was just trying to like create a cool culture at school. Create an inviting, a welcoming, a loving culture at school. Even as a vice principal, enforcing the rules. I was also the school counselor, and so kind of a conflict of, and yet it worked because I just wanted to. How can we just fix this? What can we do? And then after about 9 years of being a assistant principal, a good friend of mine they were hiring at their church, and she said, "Hey, I've been thinking about you for this role for about 2 weeks now. I think you should consider this." And she told me about it, and it's working at our church. I oversee outreach to the community, and there are 3 areas that they wanted that to be the role, and that's primarily for folks in need in our community, especially our homeless community, foster care ministry, and then an international program that we partner with called Compassion International.
So you made this big career shift right during COVID when nobody
Yeah.
wants to get together.
In fact, I started applying January of 2020, and I got through 2 interviews, and then everything shut down, and I was like, well, schools are all hands on deck, and churches are like no hands on deck, so I guess I'm not going anywhere. But in June, they said, hey, the most we're doing is outreach, and we want to finish the interview process. And so I was hired August of 2020 was when I started. So
Nice.
yeah.
All right. So I want to get this right. So some of these numbers these were just from a phone conversation we had. So somewhere between 30 and 80 people. Christmas time, it's a little lighter, but in summertime, you have as many as 80 people that will drop in on occasion on your Friday morning event. Not saying what it is yet. You have a little bit more than 10 people that use the parking lot to sleep at night, safe parking for women. You have a trailer out there, a security guard that kind of like monitors the property itself. You have a number of organizations that started swarming towards your event on Friday mornings that kind of participate as well. So they're not paid and they're not part of the organization. They've just been drawn to the fact that you're gathering these people and you're doing some amazing things. So you also have a number of volunteers who most of them don't go to the church site that is hosting it. I was going around asking people how they ran into it, what they did. They just loved helping. And so they were just volunteering because they saw the need in the community, which was pretty cool. And the church you're working at, you started asking for things like rooms, like you stole rooms from the church. Like they were being purposed for other things and you started stealing them. And I was like, wait, this big old church is like giving up all these rooms for you? Like, and this is not even really for the church, it's for the community, which is really cool. So we'll get into that as well. But those were my observations coming in and just watching, knowing some out there. So tell us a little bit about how you stole rooms and how you started recruiting volunteers to help you.
Yeah. I mean, I just was started advocating for what we needed and what made sense in order to serve our community well. When we first started this, I think it was July of 21. So almost a year after I started, we started it at our church. Now, there was a semblance of it that happened somewhere else before COVID. And so I kind of inherited a great model of folks knew about this and knew they could get laundry and food and clothing. But we started at our church because we had the facility and we were able to kind of control, can we open up, right? And can people be a part of this? And so,
So you guys have the church already had a washing machine there, right?
no,
Yeah. Oh, really? So
definitely not.
So how did the church end up with washing machines in the back of the church itself?
Yeah, we wanted to provide laundry, and not only for our Friday morning outreach, but also for folks in safe parking that are living in our parking lot. And so It was a pretty hefty process of how do we move laundry to this location and give access. You see in the far corner here, a little black swab where we have keys that are programmed to that. How do we give access during a time period? And then have laundry available. It's only two. I really wanted three, at least three, and all we could do is two. But that was even through partnership with a county supervisor who helped fund that because we were getting crazy bids, like 40 grand. And I was like, I don't know that I want to spend $40,000 on this. And we were able to work it down with some pretty
Because that's
amazing
all
people.
concrete slab. You had to drill holes through it and bring plumbing into the back of the. So this is in the back of the
Yep.
church. You can't tell this is the back of the church, but the people that are in the safe parking, they have their own badge. If it gets too cold, they can come into this room, and this room has showers and laundry, and they can hang out on a cold night in a warm spot. That's pretty cool. I thought that was amazing. So they have a key to one room of the church if they come in the back way, which was pretty cool.
Yes. And just to give context of what safe parking is, if there are folks, and it's primarily for women and children, and that's mostly because these women are typically escaping domestic violence, but women and children who are sleeping in their cars, we've designated an area on our parking lot where they can park, and then I give them access to our building. And so they can have access to showers and bathrooms all night long from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. And then laundry from like 6 to 10 and then 6 to 8 in the morning. So there's a little bit, not all night long for laundry, but exactly what you're saying. And it just gives a little bit of reprieve of they can come in, they can sit on the couch, they can do laundry. There's even a basin. You can see the basin. They can wash dishes. There's a microwave. There's a coffee maker. And so there's just small things.
That was really cool because I noticed there was a whole community of the women kind of gathering around, checking in afterwards, and kind of using Friday morning as a place for them to kind of get connected with each other and talk about their plans to get out there. So I did sit in some of the conversations and hear some of those and join in on some of those conversations, which was pretty cool. So you guys started off, I was watching this thing come to life. Nobody knew I was there taking photos, right? So I'm just being all sly. And I could see that you were coming in, coordinating everyone. And some of the folks that were taking advantage of the safe parking were coming in as well to help set up. So you had participation, but you had people from all over the community coming in to set up. And again, it's a church. It had some meeting rooms in the back, you can see on the far left-hand side, but you got them started off with a kind of a warm, welcoming initiation that was going on, and just kind of a prayerful, thoughtful starting point, which was amazing. Then it just kind of came to life afterwards. So to me, that was pretty amazing. But I wanted to kind of you have two tables that as soon as they walked in, I couldn't figure out what the two tables were for. Like, why do you have two tables as people are walking in? Maybe you can talk about the way you set this thing up, and then what is it that you call this on Friday mornings, this gathering of folks, and what's it doing for the community?
Yeah. So as soon as you walk in, we have resources that like flyers, handouts, any upcoming events, things that would be maybe applicable. And so we have information for folks to get, but then we also have just free items, whether it's feminine products, whether it's a beanie, whether it's mittens, whether it's travel shampoo and soap, just kind of, especially like during the winter, lotion, and during the summer, chapstick. And there's just a lot of different things just available to just try to, hey, if you need anything, please just take it. And so it's available for them. It's also kind of a great check-in, hey, are there any resources that we can connect you with today? And so our front desk folks, that's their role, is to welcome and just ask. It can be intimidating to share your need. And so they're there and available for that. There's things like signups, we have our laundry signups, our clothing signups. So we have a request form of clothing. We take in clothing donations as a church, and then my volunteers go through it and make sure it's quality items, and then we organize it. It's this whole, it's quite a structure.
It is.
And then we have laundry, shower, and then clothing signups are all at the front, as well as just available to answer questions or direct people to the right resources in need.
Yep. And you gave me a tour of the facility. So it started off in the parking lot where there was this great breakfast. I walked in, there's smoke, there's food out there. I was like, dude, who wouldn't want to come here on a Friday morning? This is great. And then as soon as you walk in, on the other side of the first photo is this table full of shelf-sustaining food, right? This is stuff that they could take home. So I was really intrigued by the fact that food was part of the draw, right, for many reasons. And people love just hanging out there waiting for their food to be cooked, and then kind of talking to the folks along this other table. Tell us a little bit about how you use food here.
Yeah. So this right here, your taco guy, they are the most desired vendor for graduation parties. So it is good food. And they donate their food the fourth Friday of the month, every Friday. And they're donating enough to serve 100 to 120 people. So just to give context of that. Inside, we always provide oatmeal. And you guys, I kid you not, on next door, I see so many like the world's best oatmeal is at Cornerstone on Friday mornings. And I don't, whatever, we serve oatmeal. So the idea is always oatmeal for sure and another item, whether it's a breakfast sandwich or breakfast burrito or your taco guy. And then Monday to Friday, it's a lot easier to get food than it is on Saturday and Sunday, especially hot food. And so we actually provide packaged food items to help sustain just through the weekend if needed. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You'll see the cup of noodles, granola bars, trail mix, just package items where folks can kind of just stock up a bit so that if they need to for the weekend.
Right. And that was new for me. I didn't realize that some of the feeding places don't work on the weekend. So to me, that was pretty intriguing. I didn't know that about my community. So it is one of the questions I'm still asking about my community, why we cut back on the food for folks on the weekend itself. But it was good learning for me. So the setup here, so people came in and set up their tables all around. They had covers for this. They had people staffing this. There was some orientation. Maybe you could talk about that. And then in the back of your church, you had this like big old basket. And people were just putting clothes in there, stopping in, dropping in the clothes. And tell us a little bit about this. Oh, and then I saw endless flow of guests being dropped off by local vehicle services. People were being dropped off that couldn't walk that far. So elderly folks, folks that were struggling. But I also saw a lot of people just emerging from the parking lot that I had like, where are they coming from? But they were walking out there. This part of town doesn't see a lot of homeless from the road. But if you look deeper behind trees, behind bushes, behind buildings, I was surprised at how many people were using this as a resource that I just was not aware of. So tell me a little bit about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you context, when I started in 21, we had about 10 people coming from the community because we're a ways from downtown, like you're saying. And just to give context of your numbers that you showed on the first, at the beginning of last year, we were averaging maybe 40 to 50, and now we're averaging 80 to 100 people from the community. So what we're looking at here is, so I've told you what we provide. We provide clothing, food, laundry, showers. And then we have 20 organizations that we partner with all year long. And some come every week, some come every other. And we kind of organize that by first and third or second and fourth, just so there's consistency. And some come once a month. And so we, again, designate that the third, whatever it is, Friday of the month. But we have 8 to 12, actually, sorry, I should say 8 to 14 organizations every single week. And it's a variety of resources from healthcare. We have a dental van that comes. We have housing navigation. We have phones. We have veteran services. We have classes for stabilization. We have domestic violence. And so there's just 20 different organizations that we partner with. And I'm so grateful for them. I think folks that walk in the room, it can be overwhelming, but if they need help, they're going to get connected to a resource that can provide some form of help. And so that's been phenomenal. The bin up top, the Serve the City bin, that's our clothing donation bin. And so as a church on Sundays, we say, hey, church, will you help us provide clothing for the folks that we're serving? And it's become bigger than our church. It's the community comes into, and usually this bin is overflowing, so much so that I usually have to take bags and stick them in, hide them so it just doesn't look crazy. But this is how we get the clothes that we provide for folks on Friday mornings. Yeah.
And then you get a shuttle service with arrangements with the county or with the city or people do it on their own?
No, people do it on their own. I mean, we've shared about like ride care with City Serve. So there's different opportunities with organizations that we've highlighted and shared. They've come and they've shared what they are able to do and help with. We do provide a bus pass. And so if they're able to get there, we're able to give them a 24-hour bus pass to get home. And so we do provide that. But it's been incredible to see how many people come. I mean, it is a ways away from downtown. And so we have a social services building right next door, but that's about it. And so really grateful. It's a lot of people come because it's worth it. And I will say this too: the round tables that you see in the middle, that's typically where we eat. Folks, they grab food, their breakfast, and then they eat there. And it's just been a beautiful thing of seeing community form. Not only do our volunteers get to know their names and recognize them and build relationship with them, but then they get to sit around a table and they start talking and they realize, oh, you are experiencing what I'm experiencing too, or you've been here before, and now I'm experiencing this. And there can be this, I don't feel as alone in this, or hey, how did you get past this hurdle? Right? And there's just such a really beautiful thing that happens communal wise at these tables.
Yeah, the communal wisdom that I saw shared, some of the men and women had gone through some difficult times, and they were actively sharing how all the hoops they have to go to, who's the right person to talk to, what's the thing to ask for. Don't go over there; it's a waste of time. Right? Go over here. The person you need to talk to is over here. So there was a lot of like assisting each other, and they were kind of self-helping. And I just was sitting there watching the conversation as people were describing some of the challenging things that they have to, and some of the difficult things that they're facing. So you mentioned the clothing. This is where I said you stole rooms, because you literally stole rooms. They are no longer usable for anything else except for sorting of the clothes, sorting of everything people might need out there, and then the children's closet with the other resources. So tell us, like, how did you convince the organization to give up rooms for this? And then how's that working?
Yeah, I mean, I just made a play for we have so much need for clothing and for the resources that we give away. And so how we can't just not have a space for it. We need to keep providing it for the community. So what do we do? And so thankfully I have great people that I get to work with, and we have a whole downstairs area that used to be downstairs offices. We have offices upstairs too, and we just figured out a way to creatively move everybody upstairs, and we took over the downstairs offices. And it's really, we have a counseling center, so down the hall between those clothing racks on the bottom picture is our counseling rooms. But then all the rooms within this this room right here, I think there's 4 different rooms there, are for our Friday community outreach and for clothing. So you see this, we have clothing that we keep we call this our overflow room. We actually have 2 clothing rooms. We keep our overflow room over here. And then the family room, which is it's like staple items and only staple items. So it's bed sheets, blankets, comforters, and then it's kids' clothes, diapers, some baby, maybe it's a car seat or a bouncer or something like that, and along those lines. But it's very specific of what goes in there.
No, it's very cool because it was a lot of moms that were in there getting help for the first time. First time moms were folks that were out there. So I know it started off really quiet, and the room was all set up, and by the time I left, the room was packed. There was like not a seat anywhere we could sit down. But the most consistently busy table or station was this thing called Monthly Miracles. Maybe you can tell us what was going on there, because they had a whole row of like 6 volunteers that sat on one side, and people would just line up waiting to get a conversation. What was going on with this group called Monthly Miracles?
Yeah, Monthly Miracles, it's a charity that it's for homeless prevention and intervention, is what they're striving to help with. And so they have multiple tables. There's they walk with folks, they do an intake and really hear the person's story of what's going on in their world. And if there's a way for Monthly Miracles to help them get from point A to point B, but they can sustain, then Monthly Miracles will. And their vision is, if everyone donates $1 a month, we can provide for so many. And so, but they offer all kinds of things. Sometimes it's car repair because that's where they're living, is in their vehicle. Sometimes it's helping move into first time, maybe, deposit and first month's rent. It's really hard to save because half the time they're using funds to get into hotels just to have some reprieve, and so that entry financial help. And then sometimes it's just prayer. Can we just pray with you and just be a listening ear that just walks with you and supports you?
What I loved was people were waiting in line for a particular person. Maybe they had built a relationship the week before, the month before, and they didn't want to get in line with the other person because they knew this person knew their story and they were going to wait, two more people to sit down and talk. I'm like, well, there's an open spot over there. No, 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 I'm waiting for Mary over here.
So
Like,
good.
I was like, okay. And then she'd wave and she'd go, we'll get to you in a minute, we'll get you out there. But it was really neat that they knew the person's story and they were checking in with them. How well are they doing on their plan? But they all got a plan and they got financial guidance.
Mhm.
And they got a buddy that they could check in with on a regular basis, which I thought was amazing that they didn't just gift someone,
Mhm.
they partnered with them,
Yeah.
and that volunteer was going to follow up with them afterwards.
And what's great, they'll say they average about 11, they call them miracles every month, where they get to help folks. And they'll say, Erin, we're so grateful. There's no other place like this that we can come to where folks can actually meet us right here. And so it's a beautiful partnership of how they're meeting folks in the community. And if we didn't have this space on Fridays, they wouldn't know how else to be present and available, which has been really, really fun.
So the photo here, the two people that were like the chief financial officer and the CEO, they were getting applications on the frontline table. And the person would go back and say, this person is this, this, and this. And they would huddle up and they go, we can help them. Or we know where help can be found. And they would give them direction. I love the fact that the decision-making process was right there on the floor and that you have both a CEO and a CFO making decisions on what they could do to help individuals in real time. To me, it was pretty amazing to watch frontline engagements and then back end decision making, no bureaucracy, no slow up. We can fix this. We're going to do it right now. And you're not going to leave today without having an answer. To me, that was really cool to watch how you guys thinned it out. So you guys had this board that was kind of in the back. And I thought it was pretty amazing how you had organized all the groups so that there would be plenty of room for them on a rotation basis. And you have looks like color coded spots where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. So tell us about some of the groups that have just come in and there's a group in there called phones. What does that mean, right?
Yeah, we actually had to buy a new board because it wasn't big enough for all the organizations that we partner with, which was awesome. But I want to have this. So this is at the door, and I want it to be available so that the community knows. Oh, okay, community resources for independent living. So that's help for folks with disabilities. They're coming the first and third. So they're coming. You know what? Oh, looks like they're coming every week. Great, they'll be here next week. Right? And so I want this to be available for folks when they walk in. Hey, I need to connect for veteran services. Swords and Plowshares, they are coming on the first month or the first Friday of the month. Great, I will keep that in mind and come back. Or, hey, that's today. Where are they? Right? And so I just wanted to have kind of an access for them to be able to know. And then also on the right, is it okay if I jump to the right?
Yep. Here we go.
He has it there. I created these cards, and I actually created these for folks in my congregation. I had one of my volunteers who volunteers on Friday, and she came up to me and she goes, Erin, I saw someone, and I think it was maybe at a Target or somewhere in the community that possibly could have used some help, and I didn't know what to say or do, and I just walked. I just kept walking, and I hate it. I hate that I kept walking, and so I created a card that to put in folks' hands to just go, hey, if there's a way to just invite someone and just say, hey, I don't know if this would be applicable or not, but if it would be a blessing, our church does this every Friday, and I'd love to invite you. And it's a way to just engage and offer services if that is needed. And what I've done on this card is you'll see on this side, it shows the things that we offer, in part, but then I have this QR code at the bottom, which is a Google Doc that we update every month. That's a list of all the organizations and when they're coming. And so we keep that up to date. It's really helpful not only for folks in the community, but also for organizations or service providers to go, hey, when is Monthly Miracles going to be at Cornerstone, and how can I direct my client to that service?
No, that's very cool. Great opportunity for Web3 in terms of having a blockchain design. So being able to have those things up there. So I was very interested in this because we're working on something going that direction with the Ellis app and some of the other functions that are out there. So it was a very cool experience for me. was wondering if you guys had any questions out there, because I think from our perspective, what we see is a pop-up version of the navigation center. And so part of this is like, we want to organize something like this in the city, but we need to kind of like not think that we have to permanently get things set up. So we're gonna see if we can take some questions from the crowd. I got them here. We have lots of people that have lots of experiences, and we want to make sure the questions get, passed out here and get a chance to get those answered. All right, you're up.
Thank you so much for sharing all of the great work that you do and the outreach. I'm really curious about what your connection or I guess coordination or collaboration is with the county and how well or strong that is. What are some of the upsides and what are some of the downsides that you see that could be opportunities to improve?
Yeah. So in part, that's a little bit hard to answer. I work very closely with County Supervisor David Halbert, and one of he has hired somebody to be a homeless, essentially liaison. And so she has attended our church, and so she's been involved with me she was part of when we reopened. And so I kind of have a direct access there, but he comes often. Folks from the community will come and just kind of check out what we're doing and go, how can we implement this where we're at too? Which has been a huge blessing. But he'll come and he'll check out what we're doing and just financially provide. They were the ones that helped provide. It ended up being about $15,000 to move that laundry, but they were the ones that said, hey, we want to help fund this. And so they gave funds specifically towards that. And so I think there's a lot of trust that's been built with our county supervisor. They drop in anytime, and I love it. And they get to see in action. He's very hands-on with serving as well, and so it feels very near and dear to his heart. And so I feel very fortunate for that connection. And then someone who's in his office volunteers on Fridays towards it too. So I feel like that's kind of a hard way to answer because I feel like I've got some connections there that make it really a great relationship. But I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yeah, and he's very active in the area trying to get more organizations to help out. So I know that he personally funded for 29 micro homes and got a little village going out there. So, all right, we got some questions out here in the back.
Thank you for coming. What was the starting point? Where did money start? Because without money, you can't do anything. Contributions, yes, but somewhere it has to start, and it has to start with funding. How did that happen for you?
Yeah, for us, it started with our congregation. And so our church said, we want to financially invest in the community in this way. And so you're right, we had to change a lot of our building around. We had to add tankless water heaters. We had to change our locks, add, different things like move the laundry, which was help. We got help with that, but we had to change a lot of things, and it costs us $40,000 a year to do this. And that's just for food and for, program, supplies. And so it's our church and people who've donated, it's tithing money that we've said, hey, we are going to use our funds in this way for the community.
First off, it's amazing what you guys have put together and the resources that you're making available. Even though it's one day a week, I think it's just seems like a very impactful day of the week for those folks who are in need. So my question is, what have you seen is the effectiveness of folks being able to take advantage of those resources to take the next step in getting their life into a better place?
Yeah, great question. I have so many stories, Manny, and so I'm so grateful that I have a lot of stories, because then it is folks who are wanting to take the next step towards forward. I'll give you two stories. One specifically for safe parking. So we had a woman, her name was Kim, and she was living she had a Suburban. She was living in her car. She became homeless or became living in her vehicle because her son had medical needs. And so she quit her job and was taking care of him and ran through her savings and then bought a motorhome and then lost that. And now she's in her vehicle and he's an adult now and getting services, but she's in her Suburban. And so she heard about us through City Serve, one of our organization partners. And she was living in our safe parking program. She is one of those where she has said to me, Erin, if I didn't have a place where, because of safe parking, I was able to shower every night, which meant I was able to see my doctor because I wasn't embarrassed of how I smelt. I wasn't embarrassed. I could clean up to go talk to him, and then I could get my health in order. And then because I could shower every day, I could get new clothes from our clothing outreach. I could apply for jobs with confidence, and I could actually interview. And it was this thing, this stability where she was able to not only tangibly receive things that will help her move from point A to point B, but also her confidence and just her heart to feel like, I can do this. And so it was one of my first fun stories of she ended up getting a job. She actually ended up becoming a service provider because this was such a near and dear thing to her heart now. And she's no longer homeless. She's no longer living in her Suburban. It's been years, and which is so incredible. Yeah, right. And then a second story is a gal named Michiko. I actually shared this story with you, but I think it's so fun to see the different resources that she was able to get connected to. So she's a single mom. She had a son who was about 12 or 13 at the time. She was diagnosed with cancer, and her cancer treatments and how she felt because of them, she ended up losing her job because she wasn't able to work. She ended up losing her apartment, and now they were living in their car. Sadly, their car got stolen, so now they're on the street, and it's her and her son. And they were living at BART, and they were even getting suggestions of where are the safer places to sleep at BART, and safer stations. And she was feeling so hopeless and depressed. I can't, how am I living my son? How am I doing this to him? And how is this where we're at and what happened? And also, because she lost her address, she can no longer get health care. So she's not getting cancer treatment anymore. So she literally thinks I'm just dying of cancer. And what do I do? Someone that she met who was also living on the street told her about Friday mornings. Friday mornings is what they call it. And she said, okay, we'll go. And so she came, her and her son, they were able to get into a shelter, a family shelter. And then through partnerships with organizations, they were able to get financial assistance, like through organizations like Monthly Miracles, and a couple different organizations help financially get them into an apartment. And so now they have housing again. As soon as they're housed and stable, she has a heart attack. She's taken to the doctor. It was a couple of days of helping her with her health needs. The doctor says, hey, here's your medication. Come see me again. The next availability I have is in 4 months. And she's like, the medication is 2 weeks. What do I do with this? And he's like, I'm sorry. I don't know how to help you with that. So she comes back to Friday morning and she connects with our clinician. Can you help me get a doctor for a cardiologist? The next week, she connected her to a cardiologist that she was able to see the very next week. And so it's just, she will say, if I have need, and she'll say, I won't ever be homeless again, because if I have a need, I know I can come on Friday mornings and I can at least get connected to where I can get help. And so that's been just incredible to hear. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. I was curious about the safe parking site. Was that operating when you first started?
No.
Can you tell us what steps you guys went through to get that approved and get it up and running?
Yeah. So at first I had to do a temporary use permit from the city of Livermore. And so we had that for 2 years. And then because of how much our church is serving the community, this actually became noticeably something that is just seen as what our church provides. And so I was able to avoid the $10,000 to get a use permit or a permit, a conditional use permit. And so I'm super grateful for that. But so that was one of the pieces, the documentation. We have a preschool that's on our campus. And so we do require fingerprinting. We are a church that has our own fingerprinting system. And so it's real simple for us to be able to do that. And so thankful for that. And then we essentially claimed a gentleman who works for our facilities and said, hey, if we were able to provide a trailer here on our site, would you be willing to be an overnight emergency attendant? And so he stays in the trailer and he's available in case, and he stays in the same area as our safe parking folks stay, and he's available in case of emergency and is there for them. And then we had to do some, we had to change some of the doors, had to have locks on the other side so they didn't have access to our whole building every night. And the tankless water heater was a big one with just the making sure there was enough hot water for enough showers for enough people if they'd shower back to back to back. And then we had to provide those black, I'm so not technical, those key fob, things on, there are two doors. There's one door that goes to our laundry room, and then there's one door that goes to our showers and bathrooms. They're right next door to each other. And then we just had to make sure that they were on a timed session where they were able to do that. We've had to have a little bit of extra facilities needs, for cleaning and things like that. But so there's extra little things like we provide detergent, there's little details in that way, but big picture, those are the major things.
So just a few details on that topic that I'm curious about. So do they check in like to get their key fob? Like how do they register to park in the?
Yep, great question. So they, the way that it starts, I partner with an organization called CityServe, and I actually require they do an intake and have a care session with CityServe first, because if they have a better resource for them, I want them there at the better resource. If they don't, the CityServe will refer them to me, and then we'll have like a sit-down meet and greet. I have like an application paperwork to go over with them, and then we talk about guidelines, so rules and expectations. And then this is something that's new. I've recruited volunteers that I'm pairing them up with as a safe parking advocate that is now meeting with them twice a month to make sure they are moving forward, or if there's any tangible needs, like I need this printed to go to, this organization, or I need whatever, nice clothes for an interview. Like, let's help you get that, and so there's pieces that way. And we also partner more deeply with CityServe. We require they meet with CityServe twice a month as well. So they have got 4 required meetings to be a part of our program, 2 with CityServe, 2 with my advocate, and then we're collaborating each month to make sure what else can we be doing to move these folks forward.
Excellent. We'll take one question in the back.
So the safe parking, like, is that section that's designated as safe parking, do they leave their cars there 24/7, or do you reclaim that for other uses during the day and they move their cars and so it's an empty parking lot during the day and they're just parking there at night? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. Our program is from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. And so they can come after 6, but they have to leave by 8. And so it does become, we use our parking lot in so many different ways. And so we aren't able to keep the vehicles there 24 hours.
That's good though. So that means a church who has a parking lot that they need to use, they're only giving it up at night when they're not using it anyways.
Yes.
Okay. Great. How large is Cornerstone? My bigger question is have you worked, I'm like, how can we replicate this? How large does the church need to be to replicate it? Someone who's being inspired by this and they have a church or they're attending a church, someone in here, hey, I want my church to hear about this idea. Like, how big is the church? And have you worked with any other ones who have taken your model and replicated it in their parking lot?
When you say how big, do you mean people? Like how many people?
Cornerstone, yeah.
We have about 700 people in our congregation right now. So not a
Okay,
mega
so-
church by any means.
Well, it depends on the definition, but yeah, it's medium. It's either a small mega church or a big medium-sized church,
So 700 people.
But I also want to point out that I went around to each person and very few of the volunteers actually attended the church. They were people from other churches or from community groups that they just loved coming here on Fridays. And this
Well,
was-
half of the volunteers, and some have left our church, and then they still partner with us, and I love them, and it's awesome that they're still a part of the community that serves on Fridays. But there's about half that are from our congregation that volunteer.
So, and that's a great collaboration. That was my point, was you're pulling from the whole community that was out there, and that was pretty cool just to hear people from different. I was like, really, you don't even, like, theologically, you guys are way off, but you're here because you're helping people. So it wasn't like it was anybody, it was like a shared group of specific folks of people. You were there really to be unconditionally available to the community itself. And I also noticed that there were a couple of guys that were having a rough time, and they were able to connect with a group of people that looked like they had a rough time in life, but they were now helping them out, and they were getting them into a program. The Ruka House for the guys was amazing to watch. It. There was nobody that was outside the invitation. That they found people that looked like them, and they were like, my life is super rough right now. And they're like, bring it on, let's get it fixed. Thought it was amazing to watch some of the most challenging individuals walking in who I was like, they don't look very social, but they bonded with folks that just had no problem with the fact that no matter how rough you are or how difficult you're going through, been there, done that. And they just brought them right in saying, okay, let's get you into a program. Let's get you signed up and start getting cleaned up. So it was amazing how the extremes were walking in, and everybody had a place, someone they could talk to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Did I answer your questions? Did you have any others? Thank you. Not yet. Multiple have come to check it out and are trying to figure out what parts can we do. So not even just to take the whole thing, but go, could we do safe parking? What could we do? What pieces of this could we do if we can't do the whole thing? And so
To follow up on the last speaker's comment, have you contacted the National Council of Churches, their magazine, to publicize and exemplify what you're doing? And then I have a separate question. One of the dichotomies of the view of people who are homeless is that you see people in various circumstances on the street with a pet. So they're desperate, but they have a pet which they have to feed. It presents a challenge to some people who, I don't want to deny a potential pet owner, but why have a pet that is a drain on your resources, your financial resources, when you're having hard enough time to pay for yourself, and you go out and get a pet?
Yeah, that is a difficult thing, but
it is.
a lot of people have pets, and people had homes and their pets come with them
Mhm.
when they lose their home. So sometimes they've been lifelong journey and lifelong
Yeah.
partners, right? And you can't separate the two.
Yeah.
How do you guys handle pets with your safe parking?
Safe parking, we allow pets. We don't allow pets in the building, so that's a hard piece. But we do allow pets as long as they're not, as long as they don't show signs of aggression with other folks in the safe parking program or other pets, and as long as they pick up after themselves, we do. But you're right, Paul. I mean, we've had one gal in safe parking who she has 2 dogs, and it prevents them from getting into housing or getting a job, or it can provide these hurdles. And yet it's the last, her and her husband had those dogs and raised them, and he's passed. And she feels like it's the last part of him that she has, and she can't get rid of them or give them up. And it's heart-wrenching. So we try to accommodate in ways that we can.
The
Okay,
pets are a
we'll
challenge.
take 2 more questions. I think we'll wrap it up. We'll take one from Katie, and I'll bring the mic over to Evan.
I was just curious to hear a little bit about the response of local neighbors to the facility and the usage of the facility, and how you've handled any concerns about safety, or just maybe some of their concerns, or if there's been, how that response has been to the local neighbors.
So we are located in a more commercial or corporate area. And so there's not housing that's directly around us. We've got like Costco across the street and a couple of different buildings around us. And one of them is oh man, what are they called? They're a funding, oh goodness sakes, I'm terrible. Anyways,
Like
OE.
an investment group or something,
It is a,
a financial, I think I know what it is,
A-
like a
anyways,
union.
union. Yes, yes, that's it.
Credit
Credit
union.
union. That's it.
Thank you.
And they have partnered in fun ways because sometimes they'll just, as you know, on their breaks, walk the parking lot and they'll recognize, hey, this is kind of cool what's going on. So they've done like jacket drives and things like that at winter, you know, and they've partnered in fun ways like that. And so I'm grateful for that. We've had other businesses who've said, hey, this person can't stay on our property, so they've left our property and gone to their property, and they want us to be responsible for it. And that can be hard. We want to be good neighbors, and so we'll work with them as much as possible to help with those situations, but we don't have it a lot, which I'm very grateful for. Hey, Evan.
Pets provide purpose and usefulness and love.
Yeah.
And it shows that people want all of those things.
Oftentimes it's the last bit of humanity in their life, right? It's the last compassion they have and the thing that they care about the most in their own life, and they just can't
Because
separate it.
homeless people are human.
So yeah, pets are a challenge. I know that YWAM, when it rains, they don't care. They bring the pets into their facility and they welcome anybody with, you know, any kind of pet that's out there that, you know, when it gets wet and rainy, very few places will allow for pets to come in, but YWAM's been really great here in the city to open it up. I want to thank you for coming in and sharing the story.
Thank you.
And Erin, for everything you're doing, that's amazing. So if you want to find out more, you've got some cards, you got some like contact over here. So Erin will be here to answer questions. At 1:45, we have a Dow for outreach meeting over here. We also have a couple of events coming up. March 6th, we have the walk in the Tenderloin with the rewards program afterwards. And I think there's like a reflection service the next day for some of the folks that have had recent fentanyl overdose issues, but been great human beings that have been working with a lot of folks in the homeless areas. Setbacks have been kind of heartbreaking, and just kind of they want to have a prayer service and a reflection opportunity for Salvation Army to come in and talk about demystifying the whole detox process, right? How do they decode it and make it a place where people can get help? So that'll be the next day if you want to join us for both of those events. Those will be amazing. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.